The landscape unfolded like a dream shaped by logic and whimsy, a surreal endless stretch of white blocky road climbing the sheer face of a voxelated mountain. Each block shimmered faintly, its edges glowing with cyan lines that pulsed rhythmically, as though alive with latent energy. The air was crisp, unnervingly still, and carried a silence so profound that Zephyr's every footstep echoed faintly before dissolving into the void around him. Above, the sky was an expanse of pale gray, heavy with pixelated clouds that shifted in stuttering patterns, as if they were recalibrating their existence. The mountain ahead loomed vast and monolithic, its sharp cuboid formations cutting into the heavens like a digital fortress, its ascent promising challenge and revelation. Zephyr marched forward with unwavering purpose. His wings remained tucked tightly against his sides, his robes swaying faintly with the movement of his steps. His expression was grim, his golden eyes scanning the winding ascent with a mix of determination and contemplation. "No one is coming," he muttered, his voice carrying the weight of resignation, but underscored by an unshakable defiance. The wind stirred faintly, brushing against his robes and sending ripples through the cyan lines of the blocks beneath him. "Are things getting that dire?" he asked, as if challenging the silence itself. The words were absorbed into the vast emptiness around him, leaving only the rhythmic crunch of his talons on the smooth blocks. The road twisted ahead, its sharp angles shifting imperceptibly, as though the path was alive and responding to his passage. Zephyr paused, his talons digging slightly into the blocks as he glanced towards the horizon. The mountain's peak was obscured by a swirling mist that seemed to hold its secrets tightly. "Surely the end is coming," he murmured. His voice was steady, but tinged with a faint edge of curiosity. "When is day one?" The question lingered in the air, unanswered. As Zephyr quickened his pace, his march became deliberate, each step a declaration of intent. "This is when the story crumbles," he said, "changes on a dime." As Zephyr rounded a sharp curve, the road winded into a large stone platform suspended high above the blocks. It seemed to hover, held aloft by unseen forces. At its center perched a magpie, her form regal despite her age. Her oversized, floofy bonnet cast a shadow over her sharp eyes, and her magenta robes rippled as if moved by a breeze only she could feel. Her feathers glimmered faintly, catching the muted light in a way that suggested an unspoken power. Zephyr stopped, his eyes narrowing as he regarded her. "You spawn here, grandmother?" he asked, his tone both curious and skeptical. The magpie tilted her head slightly, her sharp gaze glinting beneath the shadow of her bonnet. When she spoke, her voice was soft but carried a quiet authority. "Welcome, Zephyrus. A new cycle begins." Her words resonated, their meaning layered and cryptic. Zephyr's talons tapped softly against the blocks as he processed her presence. "So you remained in the aftermath of my destruction?" he asked, his voice hardening as he scrutinized her. The wind swirled faintly, carrying a whisper of sand from the plains below. Garetha remained silent, her gaze unwavering. The stillness pressed on Zephyr, forcing him to confront his thoughts. He glanced down at the blocks beneath his feet, his voice quieter now, almost questioning. "Why do I wallow in pride?" "In fear?" he asked, the question seemingly directed inward. Garetha's silence was heavy, offering no answers, only the weight of her observation. The air grew denser, the towering mountain above them seeming to lean closer, its presence imposing. Zephyr exhaled sharply, his gaze snapping back to her. "And these are directed by my elevation?" Taking a deep breath, his voice shifted, gaining an edge of resolve. "Now, a real question." He retrieved his long ivory pipe from within his robes, lighting it with the flick of his talons. Flame cast a brief flickering glow across his face before he took a long drag. The smoke curled upward in lazy spirals, coalescing into a glowing sigil of a Y. It hovered momentarily in the air before dissipating. "How does one ensure order?" he asked, his tone contemplative. The smoke lingered faintly before dispersing into the stillness. Zephyr's gaze sharpened, and his voice took on a tone of revelation. "The story we tell ourselves about our health. It's that fire that strikes the hellish match of purification." His realization struck like lightning. "Holy shit," he muttered, his voice tinged with awe. "This really is the next chapter." When Zephyr looked up again, Grandmother Garetha was gone. In her place lay a small pile of weathered artifacts, their surfaces worn but glinting faintly with latent energy. Zephyr's expression shifted from confusion to intrigue as he extended a wing, lifting the artifacts into the air with a soft blue light. Slowly he inspected each one, his golden eyes sharp and calculating. Gnarl, fragments of the dusk, he murmured. A faint hum emanated from the artifacts as Zephyr lowered them gently, tucking them into a pouch filled with the shards of metaglass. The pouch glinted faintly, its contents catching the cyan glow of the blocks, tightening its clasp. Zephyr spoke softly to himself. You were correct. It is madness, Gnarl. Though now we are soon to penetrate the order of Kanata, from the Ronin's expansion into soldier. His voice grew firmer, resonating with conviction. To the highest rank, to the highest form of order. The wind picked up again, a low howl echoing through the passage. Zephyr's wings shifted slightly as he adjusted his stance, his gaze fixed on the ascending road ahead. This is the risk I have to take, he said, his voice steady. Can I handle it? The wind stilled momentarily as though awaiting his answer. Zephyr's expression hardened. Yes, I can. His tone grew commanding, his voice carrying a weight of determination. Soon to be, commanding officer, Zephyrus. The blocks beneath his feet glowed faintly with each step, pulsing in time with his words. Finally, the war of night will succumb to order, he said, his voice resolute. Zephyr paused at the edge of a sharp ascent, the road narrowing and twisting into the mountain's cuboid face. The peaks above glowed faintly, their voxelated edges alive with subtle energy. He took a deep breath, his voice filled with finality. Pure conformity of shape, he said. The mountain loomed above him, an infinite monolith rising toward a pixelated horizon. Zephyr stepped forward, his figure silhouetted against the endless expanse. His march continued, his steps carrying him into the unknown, where the challenges ahead would define his next chapter.